Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emma, or if it's your first time here, hi. Let's shake hands. I'm gonna be talking to you about everything that I read in February. I had a pretty chill reading month in February because I wanted it to kind of be a self-care kind of month where I just let myself indulge in a lot of fantasy, some romance, because I have some pretty hefty reading plans coming up ahead of me. But it was also the month where I found like my first 5-star reads of the year, so I'm very happy about that. So without further ado, sit down, grab a cup of tea or coffee or something, and let's get into everything that I read. We have a big hefty romance, and that is from Lukov with Love. This I picked up because of BookTube, and I'm not mad about it. This is my first Mariana Zapata that I've read, and I really just wanted to indulge in like some figure skating sports romance. It was alright. I think I gave this 3 stars. My enjoyment, I will say though, definitely went up and up while I was reading it, because when I started this book I was so not in it. I was really not liking it. This follows 2 figure skaters. We have Jasmine, our main girl, and she is despairing because she's like 26, which is ancient in the figure skating world, and she is thinking that her career is over. She doesn't have a partner to do ice skating with or ice dancing with anymore, and everyone is just like, you know what, she's a washed up figure skater. She's never won any competitions, and she's basically sacrificed her whole life towards this goal without much payoff. Ivan, on the other hand, is like the absolute star of the arena, the town championships. He is probably the best figure skater around, and so when he asks Jasmine to be his partner for up-and-coming competitions, she is like, what the hell? Okay, even though they really don't get along and they supposedly don't like each other very much. I will say that aspect of like very light enemies to lovers was definitely there, and it's something I really don't enjoy when like it's so clear that the main character has just been misjudging every single thing that's been happening in their interactions with each other, because Ivan obviously doesn't hate her, but she's so convinced that like he loathes me, he's an awful person, when like none of this is really true. The writing, let's talk about the writing. So juvenile, oh my god, so juvenile. Why does Jasmine talk like she is 12? She literally talks like she is 12. This whole book is just cussing to the extreme, to the point where it's just so incredibly annoying, because it just feels like she's using swear words to like take up space in her manuscript. I don't know, like that's how bad it was. It was a little bit cringy at times, definitely. I did kind of appreciate the character growth that happened in Jasmine, but like, man, she was really hard to follow. She was just very whiny, very juvenile, very insulting, and like the 2 of them, their banter was very childlike as well for people who are in their 30s and late 20s. Like it was just like elementary school. The one thing I wish there were more of, like, where was the figure skating? This is a figure skating romance book, but like where was the figure skating? I wanted the tension in the figure skating. Figure skating is such like an emotional, expressive type of sport, and I honestly feel like we barely saw any competitions. We get a few pages of one competition at the end, I feel like, and we do get moments in practice, but I really wanted more scenes of them skating together. I think that can be something quite difficult to write, I guess, like write a very compelling figure skating scene, because I think Mariana Zapata gave it a shot at the beginning, and she would just like really dryly describe how Jasmine was like doing certain moves, and it was just so not working. So maybe that's why she just kind of shied away from the whole figure skating descriptive scene. I would have loved, like, where was the angst, where was the tension? I did end up really liking Jasmine and Ivan together, I guess, but overall I was just like, I really want them to just skate together. Where are my skating scenes? Really appreciated that Mariana Zapata is a very slow burn romance writer, because this book is 500 pages, and I thought that was going to be a lot, but I flew through it, and I'm so glad that like it's so slow burn, that the romance takes such a long time, because by the time you actually get to any like spice, there's not really a lot of spice in this book, which is good, because when there is, it is so goddamn awful. It's so hard to read. I was snorting. Like, why are we describing things as big mushrooms? How about we don't? Why don't we don't do it? Mariana Zapata, please stop. Would I read more from her? Maybe. I feel like she is the most well-known slow burn girly out there. So if you have anyone else, because like I didn't love her writing style. So yeah, the mushroom thing definitely got so many points docked, but that is from Lukov with love. A mixed bag, but I had some fun. Okay, let's move on to something a bit better. We have an audiobook. It's a young adult fantasy, and guess what? It's a standalone, so you can't be mad at me for starting another series. And I loved it. I gave it 4 stars, and that is Dreams Lie Beneath by Rebecca Ross. I just saw this floating around on Libby. The cover is gorgeous, and it only has 5,458 ratings on Goodreads. I would highly recommend you read this. It has an average 4.15, which is ridiculously high. This book gave me what I always say that I really crave and want in fantasy novels. It gave me those little thatched thatch roof houses, little cottages, little chicken coops, little potions, little like gathering herbs, little mending dresses. It gave me the food that I want. I read fantasy a lot of the time to literally just put myself in my cottagecore dream life, and Dreams Lie Beneath gave me that so much. Anyway, so it starts off with this town nestled next to these mountains. In these mountains there's a fortress, and long ago a curse came down from these mountains because all of the duke's kind of advisors and like spy master, master of coin, all of that, they all ganged up on the duke and decided to kill him because they didn't like what he was doing. So the duke cursed them, and now the curse is kind of plaguing the kingdom. So the curse is that you don't really dream, but when you dream, you have nightmares. You only have nightmares. And the danger is that every new moon, people's nightmares come to life in the town. And these nightmares, whatever they are, like as benign as they may be, if you're afraid of bananas, don't get it, but you know, bananas are gonna float through the town. That's fine. But if you're afraid of like axe murderers are gonna come through the town and potentially harm people. And so these towns need people called wardens, who are magicians, and every new moon they go out and fight the nightmares with magic, take down the nightmares, and just make sure everyone is okay. First of all, really cool idea, because everyone's, I don't know, it's just such a fascinating take on like nightmares, dreams, the subconscious, the things we like that are in there deep, very deep, coming out to actually harm us in a physical, really physical, realistic way. So Clementine, our girl Clementine, she's kind of co-warden with her father. She's living her quaint little cozy life. She's also a painter, and she paints like this kind of scary elderly woman's portrait every once in a while. One night, 2 brothers show up from like a neighboring region, and they're also magicians. And it's not very cash money to challenge another magician for their territory. Like, it's just not done. It's not very polite. But that is what Phelan and Lennox do. These 2 brothers, they're like, hey, we're gonna challenge you for your territory because we want it. They end up winning the challenge, and so Clementine and her father are kicked out. They have to go to a big city, relocate, find her mom, who they've kind of lost contact with. That section of the book I really loved as well, because it was like Clementine struggling with adjusting to big city life, and I was like, girl, same. The curse starts to definitely take on more of a all-encapsulating approach, I guess, and at the same time Clementine disguises herself as this whole other girl, and she starts to work for one of the brothers as his partner because she wants to get revenge on the 2 brothers for taking her home away from her. So lots of Howl's Moving Castle vibes. Lots. Part of the way that Clementine can transform herself into a whole other person, like she looks totally different, is that she kind of gives up her heart, and her heart turns into stone. So like kind of like Howl and Howl's heart. Calcifer. Anyway, also part of the reason why I decided to name my cat Calcifer, because like I would say he's my heart as well. Anyway, lots of those vibes. Really loved it, but I also thought this was so impressive because Rebecca Ross manages to cram so much lore, so much history, so much backstory that so many authors struggle to even populate amongst 3 books, but she crams it all into one standalone young adult fantasy, which was so impressive. This had so many cool elements, and I really liked it. I ended up being even a little sad that this is a standalone. So Dreams Lie Beneath, 4 stars. If you're looking for a new fantasy, if you're looking for some coziness, a new take on some magic systems, but also with a few tropes, not a huge reliance on romance at all, although I kind of wish it had relied a little bit more on romance, because I think that would have been cool, but I'm thrilled that I found this. So that is Dreams Lie Beneath. Okay, then I picked up a book off of my shelf, also an audiobook that I've had for a while. I got this thrifted, and that is Toni Morrison's Mercy. And do you kind of struggle a lot with Toni Morrison's writing. I think she does so many things. So many things are always going on at once. Mercy can kind of be read as a prelude to Beloved. That deals with things that will directly influence the world of Beloved, because A Mercy is set in the late 1600s, and we have this man named Jacob. He's an Anglo-Dutch trader. It's when slave trade is still in its infancy in the Americas. He is not a fan of what's going on. He's like, this is wrong, but he has to accept this small girl as payment for like a debt from a plantation owner, because this guy's like, you know what, you're just gonna have to take this girl, and that's gonna be that, because the girl's mother's like, please take my daughter, please take her away from me. I think she's gonna have a better life with you than here on the plantation. So Jacob does, and Jacob and his wife, who herself escaped like religious prosecution in England, they're now living in America, in Maryland, I think. They kind of start taking in a whole bunch of people. So it's a story with very much a number of voices, switches back and forth without much warning. We have multiple timelines. There's just a lot going on, but it does deal with the act of mercy and the consequences of mercy, because obviously the mother of our girl Florence, she thinks that giving her daughter away is the best thing, but Florence grows up feeling so abandoned, unloved, and this leads to other things in her life, tragedy, the like. So did not like it as much as Beloved, because I just think Beloved is like, oh my god, like 5 stars. I still gave A Mercy 4 stars. I would definitely recommend. It is a shorter one as well. Gorgeous. So devastating. So that is A Mercy, and the audiobook is also narrated by Toni Morrison, so I would recommend that. Super briefly, because this was in a vlog recently and Carolyn and I just had our live show, I also read Once There Was a War by John Steinbeck. This is for A Game of Tomes, which is a book club that Carolyn and I host. I will link our video up above. We had such a good time. Thank you for joining us. So Once There Was a War is Steinbeck, and he went to World War II. He went a whole bunch of different places during World War II as a war correspondent, and he wrote down things that he saw, and he would send them back home. I definitely appreciate the significance of this work. It was very hard for me to get any kind of enjoyment out of it. There were some passages that were quite lighthearted, pretty funny, but overall, as Steinbeck says in the introduction, Once There Was a War is something that isn't totally reminiscent or possessive of reality, because of course Steinbeck was writing for the war effort. It's very tinged with propaganda-ish flavors. It doesn't always ring true. It's not always true. Sometimes it's puffed up. I feel like sometimes things are taken maybe more lightly than they should, and definitely more lightly than I guess Hemingway takes them, which is the work we were comparing this to. Overall, as a piece of enjoyment, not a lot of enjoyment was had, but like as a historical artifact, which was what a lot of us were saying during the live show, very cool to read. And there were some really funny sketches, because I mean or vignettes I should say. They're each only 3 to 4 pages long. He goes on a tangent about how the English mistreat their vegetables, which was really funny. There's other passages about this goat that's in the army, and then they are like spliced with quite serious passages of people going to war, soldiers experiencing war for the first time, Steinbeck experiencing it himself, although he does tend to kind of remove himself from the situation. I did struggle a little bit to finish this, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm so looking forward to reading more of Steinbeck's fiction. So that is Once There Was a War. Come here, I'm not gonna introduce to you my first 5-star read of the year. I love this. I love this. I want to read it again. I wish there was like a sequel. I love this book so much. 5 stars. It's Ember and the Ice Dragons by Heather Fawcett. Heather Fawcett, thank you for writing this. This is a middle grade about our protagonist, who is a dragon disguised as a little human child. I think she's like 12. This was so bloody fantastic. I can't even tell you. This deals with so many things that I love. So we have Ember, who is our dragon. She is a fire dragon because her father, her adoptive father, went searching out in Wales for a storm, because in this world there are storm mancers, who are magicians who gather their magic, their power to do magic from magical storms. Along the way, he runs into 2 dead dragons, because in this world dragons, they're very much an endangered species, but people hunt them for their value. It's very upsetting. It was very upsetting in that way, because there's a lot of dragon death in this book, but he finds that the two mom and dad dragons have a little baby dragon and she's still alive and kicking, and he's like, I can't just leave her here, so he disguises her. He puts a spell on her to make her into like his own daughter, and he takes her home. He's a professor at this university. He's very eccentric, he's very just fun and quirky, definitely professor vibes, just fun professor vibes, but she grows up on a campus. So cute, it's so goddamn cute, so charming. I just love charming books, and Ember and the Ice Dragons is so charming. Heather Fawcett's writing is like so fun, so engaging. I think the pacing is perfect, the writing is perfect. The little things that are embedded into this book just make the world so much more believable, so much more fun. The little pieces of magic that she decides to enchant. Delicious, delightful. The catch is that Ember bursts into flames because she can't really control her power, and because she doesn't want to hurt anyone, her father or her cat. Her cat talks, which is so funny because the cat just screams like food. She's like, I'm gonna take myself away to Antarctica, where there's a research station, and I'm gonna stay there with my aunt. This book is primarily set all in the icy dark of Antarctica. You know that's my jam. I had such a good time with the atmosphere, with the environment, with the different aspects of things that are happening in Antarctica, because it was even better than the campus setting. I just loved it. I loved everything about this book. I think the plot was fantastic. She discovers like ice dragons in Antarctica, and there's like this whole poaching competition. The British Empire is involved. It's set during the Victorian period. It's a bit steampunky. It's still filled with magic and dragons and friendship and cold and snow and penguins. Read it. Read it. It barely has any ratings on Goodreads. I'm outraged. Buy it for your little sister. Buy it for your child. Buy it and give it to your local library. I don't know. I just loved it. So that is my first 5-star read of the year. I was not expecting it to be a middle grade, but here we are. I loved it. I loved it. A big thank you to Jade from JD Rereads for talking about this a long time ago, because that's where I heard this from. So okay, next up we have a what the hell was this kind of book. I read The Desert King's Spy. This was an audiobook for me by Yves Langlais, because I'm a fool. I read a lot of like books that hardly anyone has read this month. This only has 120 ratings on Goodreads. I don't advise you to make that number go up. This was not good. I didn't even rate it because I'm kind of like, what is the point? However, this did serve its purpose because I just wanted something so mind-bogglingly numbing, maybe a little bit bad, just a little bit crazy for my train ride. So I listened to basically this whole thing on my train journey home and then on my way back, and it was not great, but it did exactly what I wanted to. I just like shut my brain off, looked out the window, and listened to The Desert King's Spy. Oh, what was really embarrassing though is that I had to show the conductor my ticket, and then when I like turned my phone around, it was this cover of this like uber ripped man in the desert with a scantily clad woman, and I was like, please. No shame. That was a bit embarrassing. So The Desert King's Spy, let's just talk about it because it's so funny. It's not good. Don't read it. I don't recommend you read it. It has a lot of problems. We follow our main girl, and the book, I thought it was like camp. It was like not serious. The book opens and she's with her whole entire family. She has a huge family. Her mom, her dad, her siblings, and all of a sudden their house gets attacked by giant monsters, giant desert monsters called Gigamanders. All I can think of when they say Gigamanders is like Giga Chad, and it's just so funny, like this jacked salamander. Anyway, so from page 1 to 17 of the book, her whole entire family gets eaten by giant salamanders. And the way it's described is just hilarious. I was snorting. It's like so funny because she's like, oh my gosh, there go my 2 older brothers. I so admire their bravery trying to protect the family. I hear a crunch and their blood spurts and they're gobbled up by this salamander. At the end of the chapter, it's just her and her one like baby brother left who's like 5 or something. She's like, oh, he's so brave. He's gonna escape. He gets to the door. He starts walking out. He's gonna meet me outside, and then Salamander eats him, like just eats him whole. Anyway, so the first chapter I was like, this is exactly what we're looking for. It turns out that our girl escapes, and on her travels through the deserts because she's just trying to make it to the next city because this monster invasion has gotten quite out of hand. She's picked up by some like really nice girls. This book has like really great female friendships and relationships, I will say that, but she's picked up by them. She's like, hey, we're gonna mentor you. You can come be a stripper. You can come be a stripper for us and you'll get paid well, you'll be protected, you'll make best friends for life, and you'll have a bit of money. So our main girl is like, okay, sure. Partway through her gig, which like she's having fun, she's making friends, this guy comes in because they're like stripper assassins, I guess. That's cool, that's fun. And he's like, hey, I have a job for you. Can you spy on our king? And our girl, I think her name is Ashari, if I'm remembering that correctly, she's like, yeah, why not? Why not? She disguises herself because she kind of has some magic powers unbeknownst to her, but she's really good with like potions. She goes to the castle and her job there is to find out the king's plan, like what is his plan in dealing with these monsters, because something's got to be done. We can't just let our people be gobbled up by giant gigamanders anymore. That won't do. She goes to the king and immediately the king is like obsessed with her, kind of over the moon, like he needs to chill out. But we learn that he's like kind of a good king, I guess. He does have plans to deal with these monsters, and eventually her cover is blown. He finds out that she's not a diplomat, she's a stripper assassin. That doesn't look good for her resume. And then they kind of fall in love. The king, no, hated him. He gave me the ick, the ickiest ick man. Really what took over this book and what ended up the plot spiraling the plot out was that they have to take care of these goddamn giant desert monsters. It's not just gigamanders anymore, it's like sand krakens, sand dragons, monsters galore, like just monsters everywhere is what this book became, and it was just so silly, so poorly written, so poorly paced. Oh my god. I just don't even know what I just read. I don't even know what I just read. There are other books in the series. I'm not gonna bother unless I ever have a desperate train ride again where I just want to shut my brain off, because we also have the Barbarian King's Assassin and the Pirate Queen's Captive. Oh, and it actually came out last year. Would you look at that? So alright, moving on. I didn't even rate it because I'm not even gonna bother. Move on to something completely different, the duality of man. We have Grendel, and guys, this was my second 5-star read of the year. Freaking love this, ate this up. I don't know if I wish I'd read it sooner, but I just loved it so much. This book has been sitting on my shelf for a really long time. I got this copy from Thrift Books a few years ago, and phenomenal. So John Gardner retells the story of Grendel. If you don't know, Grendel is the monster featured in Beowulf, the hit epic poem. This book is like magic. It's deep, dark, ancient magic is what Grendel is. Like, this is so powerful. I love Grendel. I've previously done essays on Grendel at university, and to like have a whole book from his point of view, it was just devastating. I like felt it in my gut. I feel like this book, I read it at the perfect time. I feel like it just got so much at so many thoughts I've been having, including like, I don't know, futility, death, destruction, evil. What is evil? What is the meaning of everything when you know it's just going to end in death, darkness, destruction, the obliteration of the universe? That kind of stuff. Fantastic. If you can see all these tabs, the writing, some of the best writing I've ever come across. I don't know why this book isn't hyped up or talked about more. Do yourself a favor. Like, it's just absolutely, it will demolish you. It will absolutely bulldoze you. So Grendel, in this one, we have him, his life. If you don't know, he is cursed. He is said to be of Cain's race, so God has outlawed him, exiled him. He is pushed to the boundaries of society. He's a weird monster. He's not fully a man. He's furry, he's fuzzy, he can pick up and eat 30 men at once. He's probably bigger than the gigamanders. He's having a bad time because you know what exiles and outlaws want? They want company. They want to feel like they're part of something. He just wants friends. He wants friends. And when he sees humans for the first time, because we have the Danes, And we have Hrothgar, who is this new kind of king getting set up a little bit. Grendel's like, hey, those are some people, they kind of almost look like me. And of course when he tries to introduce himself to them, they just try to kill him. And that becomes this whole thing. Like, Grendel makes their existence possible. He makes their nobility, their heroism possible. He becomes the force and the being by which they define themselves. It's devastating. It's so brilliant. You see the making of the Danes' history, the way that they perceive themselves, and it's so, like, Beowulf doesn't really touch on this at all, right? Because I mean Beowulf isn't really pro Grendel, the poem, but John Gardner really looks at, like, what are these men, these kings, saying to themselves? Like, what stories are they telling themselves? Where did they get the right to call themselves heroic and noble, and where did they get all this, like, puffed up culture? And Grendel sees this and he's like, this is incredibly incorrect. We have language as such a huge theme in here. The power of language is the biggest running thing, I think, in Grendel, and it's one of the coolest things. I'll just read you a few quotes because I totally didn't even get to vlog anything about this. I just read this in a couple sittings. I was obsessed. Grendel's described as a shadow shooter, earth rim roamer, walker of the world's weird wall. He pays such respect and, like, does so many cool things as well with the original. The way that things sound, the alliteration, the descriptors, it's just all like a nice homage, if you will. I stand there shaking from head to foot, moved to the deep sea depths of my being, like a creature thrown into audience with thunder. We have Grendel's mother, who is this bigger giant as well. We have other creatures that Grendel lives with, like, because he can't live with humans, he's kind of consigned and confined to this cave, like Grendel's cave, and there's other creatures shuffling brimstone-eyed from room to room, or sitting separate, isolated, muttering forever like underground rivers, each in his private, inviolable gloom. I understood that the world was nothing, a mechanical chaos of casual brute enmity on which we stupidly impose our hopes and fears. I understood that finally and absolutely I alone exist. All the rest I saw is merely what pushes me, or what I push against blindly as all that is not myself pushes back. I create the whole universe blink by blink. Guys, anyway, so this is probably a new absolute favorite. I did have an inkling that this was a 5-star prediction, but wow. And if you know how Beowulf ends, then you kind of know what's gonna happen, and it's wow. Just wow. 5 stars. Recommend that. Alright, I have 2 more books to talk to you about. This one is the last one that I finished yesterday, a couple days ago, and that is Idle Burning by Rin Usami. This one is a really short audiobook, and again, it has 1,700 ratings on Goodreads, so I guess we're just going obscure this month. This was good. I liked it. Idle Burning examines obsessive pop culture. We're talking like the obsessions that people have in K-pop. This one is J-pop specifically, so Japanese pop music. It examines cancel culture, it examines society. A lot of it reminds me of Convenience Store Woman as well, so if you like that, you probably like Idle Burning. In this one we follow a 16-year-old high school student. It's clear that she has a lot of troubles with school, with social norms, social cues, and her main obsession is J-pop. But more specifically this one group and this one idol who she has made like her god, her private god, who she worships. Like, that is the place where she kind of knows what's going on. She's so proficient in this man's language, in the way that he is. She keeps obsessive binders and binders on everything he's ever said or done. Her Oshi is like her life. I think his name is Masaki. Yes, Masaki. So Masaki becomes like her, it's literally her religion. This book is really good at examining that very obsessive side of fandoms, especially K-pop and J-pop, that just like places the idol's well-being, like idolizes, just like idolatry gone so far, where like the idol's well-being, health, future, everything is just like placed above your own. Like, she spends all of her money from her part-time job at a rrestaurant on their CD so that they can get votes for competitions. She will buy everything they ever put out. She goes to every concert she can go to. She spends every waking hour listening to their music. Like, it's just full-blown obsession. At the start of the book, things kind of take a downturn because Misaki punches a fan. It comes out that he has punched a female fan, and immediately, like, we don't really know what the context was, what happened, but cancel culture obviously gets its little hooks in there, and so everyone, fans included, except for the very hardcore fans like our narrator, just dismantle this man, cancel him, with like Misaki going up in flames for this thing that like he may or may not have done. It affects so many other people, including his group, his fans, real people. I mean, the person he punched or didn't punch. This wildfire that catches, and it's really showing how detrimental cancel culture is, the effects that it has on ordinary people, on the person who does get canceled, and it also examines, like I said, the really obsessive culture. So I like this. It was a little bit short. I wish it would have been a bit longer and explored some things, but I did really like the themes that it dealt with. So I think overall that's why I gave it 3 stars. So that is Idle Burning. And finally, I ended up finishing The Hotel, Occupied Space by Robert A. Davidson. I gave this 4 stars. This is everything I hoped or ever could hope to find in a kind of academic piece of theory on the hotel, which there isn't a lot of because it's kind of like an overlooked, I don't know, an overlooked cultural phenomenon in academia, I feel like, a little bit, which is why it would be a good topic for a thesis, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, The Hotel, Robert A. Davidson. I checked this out from the library and then I bought it myself because I wanted to have it. I wanted to annotate it. I'm obsessed with this. This looks at the hotel in so many different ways. It starts with just like examining the hotel through the lens of occupation. So how do people occupy the space of the hotel? A hotel is something that is used so many different ways for so many different purposes, and the occupation itself can also have a militant definition because hotels are often the first buildings that are requisitioned in times of war, which this book also talks about. So the book is split into the pictorial hotel, so it talks about the hotel in paintings, which is really cool. Very interesting. And then we move into the hotel in film, the cinematic hotel, which is also very cool because I actually just got a couple of Hitchcock's films which are mentioned in here. This book made me want to watch them. They are North by Northwest and Vertigo. I'm currently watching Vertigo. I've actually never seen a Hitchcock film. Yeah, I've never seen a Hitchcock film, but I'm starting with Vertigo because it features a hotel very prominently, and then I have no idea what North by Northwest is really about. Yeah, it mentioned the film a lot and how the hotel kind of plays into the film, so watching that. It talks about the wartime hotel, so how different hotels were requisitioned, taken over, and used as bases, used as places where information is transmitted, how political content is projected onto form. It kind of goes into a darker context where it overlaps the tourist gaze and the sniper's gaze. So we have the tourist who goes to the hotel, they're using, you know, the outlook of the hotel, whatever it's looking out on, as a vista to appreciate the view, but then in times of war we have snipers who use and occupy the space in the exact same way because they're monopolizing the space. It's a space from which they can see and shoot, just like a tourist shoots with their camera, but obviously very different scenarios. So I freaking love this. And then the last section is the displacement hotel, so hotels that are used to hold people if they come to the country and they don't have the proper documents, or if they come to the country as a refugee and we're just looking for some place to hold them. And obviously the whole situation in both accounts, I guess the more positive situation where like the hotel is being used to house people or detain people. And then the last section is about the Syrian refugee crisis, and it looks at a lot of Canadian and German hotels that served as places to house people. This author, he's actually a professor at University of Toronto, so I mean I could go talk to him if I wanted to. Hi, I really liked your book. So that is everything I read in February. So where's my water? Thank you for watching. Let me know what your favorite book of the month was. I'm pretty happy with my reading month. Like, I just think I used it well. Used it to pace myself, to let myself just read kind of what I wanted to laugh a little bit, but also got some more, I guess, serious works down, which was nice. So until the next one, that is when I will see you. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. So ciao.